In the quiet, orderly town of Promise Creek, time was not merely kept, it was revered. The town's heart was not the church steeple or the sheriff's office, but a small, unassuming shop with a single elegant sign hanging above the door, Vance and Daughter Horologists. Inside, amidst the gentle, overlapping ticking of 100 clocks, Amelia Vance, at 66, was the sole keeper of her family's legacy and the town's most intricate secrets. Amelia was a woman of quiet precision. Her silver hair was always pinned in a neat, practical bun that belied the complexity of its construction. Her hands, though etched with the fine lines of age, were impossibly steady, capable of manoeuvring the most minuscule of gears with the aid of a jeweler's loop. She had inherited the shop the skill and the profound sense of duty from her father, a master watchmaker who had taught her that every timepiece had a soul, a history of moments big and small held within its delicate mechanics. For 30 years since his passing, she had lived a life of quiet solitude, her companionship the steady rhythm of pendulums and the stories held within the watches brought to her for repair. She knew the history of the town through these objects. She knew the golden pocket watch given to Judge Miller by his late wife, which he brought in every year for a cleaning, more as an excuse to speak of her than for any mechanical need. She knew the simple, sturdy railroad watch belonging to the station master, a timepiece that had marked the births of his 3 children. And she knew the fancy, frivolous ladies' watches that came and went, marking fleeting romances and forgotten promises. She was a custodian of time, but her own time had seemed to stop the day her father died, leaving her to be the daughter on the sign, a title she had never felt the need to change. Her meticulously ordered world was introduced to a new, unfamiliar rhythm with the arrival of Jacob Croft. He didn't ride into town with the swagger of a young cowboy or the bluster of a cattle baron. He arrived on a sturdy, dust-coloured horse, a man in his late 60s, whose broad shoulders were stooped with a weariness that had nothing to do with the trail. His face was kind, but etched with a deep, quiet grief, and his eyes, a startlingly clear blue, seemed to be looking at a landscape no one else could see. He was a retired Texas Ranger, a fact he did not advertise, a man who had traded a life of danger and duty for the solitary peace of a small ranch several days' ride from town. He came to Amelia's shop not for a new timepiece, but to mend a broken one. He unwrapped a small bundle from a soft leather pouch and placed it gently on her counter. It was a beautiful but badly damaged silver pocket watch. The crystal was shattered, the hands were bent, and its heart was silent. I was told, he began, his voice a low, gravelly thing, that if anyone in this territory could make it tick again, it would be a Vance. Amelia fixed the loop to her eye and examined the watch. It was a complex piece, finely made, but it was the inscription on the back that caught her breath. My Jacob, my time is yours. Sarah. It was my wife's, Jacob said quietly, answering the unspoken question. A wedding gift to me. She's been gone 5 years. An accident. A runaway wagon. The watch was in my pocket. It broke when I... He trailed off, the memory too heavy for words. Amelia looked from the broken watch to the broken man before her. She understood. This was not a request for a simple repair. This was a request to restore a life's most precious memory. It is badly damaged, she said, her voice soft but professional. The balance staff is likely broken, and the mainspring is surely compromised. It will take time. "I have nothing but time," he replied. And so Jacob Croft took a room at the town boarding house, and a slow, quiet courtship began, measured not in grand gestures, but in the gentle ticking of restored clocks. He would visit the shop each afternoon ostensibly to check on the progress of his watch. He'd sit in the chair by the window, saying little at first, simply watching her work. He'd watch her steady hands, the intense focus in her eyes, the way she seemed to be in a silent conversation with the intricate world of gears and springs. He started bringing her things. A wildflower he'd found on a walk, its petals a shade of blue that matched his eyes. A cup of hot coffee from the mercantile on a chilly morning. He began to help her, his large, capable hands, surprisingly gentle, as he assisted her in lifting a heavy grandfather clock or repairing a loose floorboard in her shop. And they began to talk. She told him about her father, about his philosophies on time and craftsmanship. She showed him the difference between a Swiss escapement and an English one, her quiet passion for her work shining through. He in turn told her stories of his life as a ranger, not the tales of gunfights and glory, but the quiet moments, the bone-deep weariness of a long patrol, the surprising beauty of a desert sunrise, the quiet camaraderie with men who were long gone. And hesitantly at first, they spoke of Sarah and of Amelia's father. They spoke of love and loss, of the deep anchoring pain of being the one left behind. They discovered they were both keepers of a silent vigil, guardians of a past that felt more real than the present. In sharing their stories, they were not diminishing the memory of their loved ones, but rather giving their grief a safe harbour, a place to be seen and understood. The lonely silence that had defined both their lives began to be filled with a comfortable shared quiet. This budding, fragile connection was threatened by the arrival of a different kind of future. His name was Mr. Franklin Finch, a fast-talking salesman from the National Timepiece Company of Chicago. He was everything Jacob and Amelia were not, loud, slick and polished. He set up a grand display in the town's hotel lobby, showcasing dozens of shiny new mass-produced clocks and watches. He held a town meeting much like the telegraph men of other towns. Ladies and gentlemen, he boomed his voice full of manufactured enthusiasm. The era of the solitary, expensive watchmaker is over. Why wait weeks for a repair when you can have a brand new, perfectly accurate timepiece today for half the price? This is the future: efficiency, affordability, progress. Some of the townsfolk were swayed. The promise of something new and cheap was a powerful lure. Finch began to subtly undermine Amelia. He would stand outside her shop remarking loudly to passers-by about the quaint but outdated nature of her work. He offered steep discounts, and soon the steady flow of customers to Amelia's door began to trickle. She saw her neighbours sporting new shiny watches from Chicago, their old family timepieces left to gather dust in drawers. It wasn't just a loss of business, it was an erasure of history, and it broke her heart. Jacob saw the hurt in her eyes, the slight tremor in her steady hands. One afternoon, he found Finch holding court in the general store, belittling Amelia's craft. Her methods are archaic, Finch was saying, a relic of the past. The future is in the factory, in precision engineering for the common man. Jacob stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not issue a threat. He simply placed his large hand on the counter. "Mr. Finch," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the salesman's chatter. "I've seen the inside of a factory-made watch. The gears are stamped from cheap metal. They are designed to fail. I've also seen the inside of a watch made by Miss Vance's father. Every gear was hand-filed, every jewel set with purpose. It was designed to last a lifetime, several lifetimes. He looked around at the townsfolk. There's a difference between a thing that tells you the time and a thing that holds your time. Miss Vance deals in the second kind, and that is not a relic. That is a legacy. Finch, flustered by this quiet, immovable opposition, could only sputter. The townspeople looked at Jacob, then at their own new cheap watches, and a seed of doubt was planted. That evening, Amelia and Jacob sat on her porch swing, which had begun to see more use in the last few weeks than it had in the last 30 years. "Thank you, Jacob," she said softly. "You didn't have to do that." "Some things are worth defending," he replied, looking at her in the twilight. A comfortable silence fell between them. The air was filled with the scent of her night-blooming jasmine and the distant chirping of crickets. In that moment, they both felt it, the gentle, terrifying pull of a new beginning. And with it, a pang of guilt. Sometimes Amelia whispered, her eyes on the distant hills, "I feel as if I am betraying my father by enjoying the quiet a little less. And I feel as if I am betraying Sarah." Jacob confessed, his voice thick with emotion, "by feeling a little less lonely when I am with you." It was a pivotal, honest confession. They were two people standing on the precipice of a new chapter, afraid of turning the page for fear of dishonoring the ones that came before. Finch, feeling his influence wane, decided on a final, aggressive move. He discovered that the town hall's grand clock, a treasured landmark, had been malfunctioning for months. It was a complex European-made piece that no one, not even Amelia's father, had been able to fully repair. Finch announced that as a gift to the town, his company would replace the old, unreliable mechanism with a brand new factory-made one, free of charge. It was a brilliant public relations move, a final statement on the death of the old ways. The town council, seeing a free solution to a long-standing problem, was ready to agree. The climax came at the town meeting called to accept Finch's generous offer. Just as the mayor was about to call for a vote, Amelia Vance stood up, Jacob Croft by her side. "Before you accept Mr. Finch's gift," she said, her voice quiet but clear, commanding the room's attention, "I ask that you allow me one day to look at the clock's mechanism." Finch laughed. "My dear woman, your own father couldn't fix that clock. What makes you think you can?" "My father," Amelia said, her gaze steady, "taught me everything he knew. And in his final years he was studying this very problem. I believe I have found the notes he was missing." It was a gamble born of a late-night discovery in her father's oldest, most cryptic journal. The town, moved by her quiet plea and swayed by Jacob's steadfast support, agreed. For the next 24 hours, the town watched as Amelia, with Jacob as her assistant, worked inside the clock tower. It was a painstaking, intricate dance. He would hold the lamps, hand her the tiny, specialized tools, and provide a steady, reassuring presence. She, in turn, worked with a focused intensity that was breathtaking to behold. She disassembled the massive mechanism piece by delicate piece, cleaning a century of grime, discovering a single minuscule gear that had been warped by time, a flaw so small no one else had ever found it. Using her father's notes and her own lifetime of skill, she didn't replace it. She repaired it carefully, filing it back into its perfect original shape. The next day, as the entire town gathered in the square, Amelia and Jacob made the final adjustments. A hush fell over the crowd. And then, for the first time in years, a deep, resonant chime echoed through Promise Creek. Once, twice, all the way to 12. It was noon. The clock was keeping perfect time. It was a victory more profound than any argument. The town erupted in cheers. They were not cheering for a repaired clock. They were cheering for their own history, for legacy, for the quiet, diligent woman who had refused to let it be erased. Franklin Finch packed his display of shiny watches and left town on the afternoon stage, defeated not by force but by a timeless handcrafted truth. That evening, Amelia placed Jacob's fully restored pocket watch on the counter. It ticked with a steady, strong beat. Its heart was alive again. Jacob picked it up, listening to the sound. He looked at the watch, then at Amelia, whose face was illuminated by the soft light of the setting sun streaming through her shop window. "It keeps perfect time," he said, his voice full of a quiet wonder. He did not put the watch in his pocket. Instead, he reached across the counter and gently took her hand. "Amelia, I came here to fix a broken piece of my past. I thought if I could hear this watch tick again, I could feel closer to Sarah." He looked into her eyes, his own clear blue ones, full of a new, hopeful light. "But listening to the clocks in this room with you sitting on your porch, watching you work, I realized something. You don't honor the past by living in it. You honor it by building a future worthy of its memory." He didn't need to say more. She didn't need to reply. The promise of this new shared time ticked softly, and surely in the quiet of the room, a gentle, steady rhythm for the years to come.